Welcome back. Today we are talking with Nicholas Janni, the author of Leader as Healer. Nicholas, great first segment. Thank you so much. I find it very inspirational listening to you. And I hope a lot of crisis leaders and resilience leaders out there are really paying attention on how they can really move things forward within their organizations. I wanted to touch on something else that's in your book. That's an entire chapter on emotions. Why are emotions so important when it comes to a leader?
This is a big topic, Alex, and it's one that I see is not very well addressed generally. So first of all, we are deeply emotional creatures. And we had to, as we were developing, we had to close down a lot of our emotions. Because, fundamentally as a child, let's say I get very scared, normal. I get scared. I come to my caregiver, mother or father, and I say, hey, I'm really scared. Now, if he or she either ignores me or says, well, there's no need to be scared. Why are you scared? Or even like boys shouldn't be scared, all that kind of stuff or whatever. In that moment, my whole emotional life is invalidated. And I have only one choice really then. I have to contract, which I do physically, and I have to close my emotions. That is a fundamental definition of trauma. All the times in my life when something happened and I could not process it. Because if my caregiver said, oh, it's okay, I understand you're scared, just come here. It's okay, just feel it. It'll pass. Then we might say, okay, now let's see, is there anything to be scared of? But the whole emotional experience has been processed. Now, cut to a leader who's 40 or 50 or whatever it is, and then she or he is actually throughout the day having triggers that are actually triggering these, because those unfelt emotions don't go away. They're inside us. So if you imagine we are a whole energy system, then whole parts of our energy get frozen, but they live inside us. They don't go away. So I'm already operating with a lot less of my life energy available. But then those emotions get triggered. But because I haven't processed them, I still don't. That's when we get a lot of dysfunctional behavior. So as I say when I work with groups, if someone is behaving very dysfunctionally, and we obviously have many examples, there's normally only one reason. Emotions are being stirred within them that they are not aware of and not addressing. So we have it. So even on a very simple example, and it's a big topic, so we'll just touch on the basics of it. Let's say you're in a team meeting, and you're the leader, and there's a lot of anxiety in the room, as is pretty normal now. So if you are not mature, you will ignore that. You will go on trying to have the strategic conversation on top of an energy field here that has a lot of anxiety. And you see what I'm doing. I am therefore like this, thinking. Now, a mature leader who's done enough of their inner work will simply say, and they will change their tone as they do so. They'll say, just a minute, everyone. There's a lot of anxiety here. It's natural. I'm losing sleep sometimes. Let's just acknowledge that together. That's all that's needed. Because in that moment, everyone's nervous system can go, thank you. I don't have to fight that. Because this is a key message that we were often very far away from. Our emotions do not need fixing. They do not need transforming. They do not need healing. They just need to be allowed. and acknowledge. This is so fundamental, and we're so far away from that. I was with a senior team, I won't say who or where, recently, and the night before I had dinner with them, and actually a woman, one of the senior leaders, said to me, "Nicholas, you need to understand, most of the men in this team would rather die than show vulnerability." That was extreme, but only an extreme version of what is very common. I am not allowed to say I'm sad. I'm not allowed to say I'm frightened. That has to change. People have to be allowed. We're not talking about therapy. We're not talking about fixing. We're just talking about being allowed to include our emotions. And any high-performing team will do that. And any team that doesn't will not do that to their cost, because their whole nervous system is in contraction, and therefore the quality of our critical thinking is diminished. Now, for the individual leader, if I'm doing deep coaching with someone, and I've had the privilege of doing some wonderful work with some great CEOs, we go deep into what they're carrying inside. And that's where we understand that our emotional body is composed of my personal experience, like my childhood, what I was not allowed to feel when I was growing up. It's also composed of my ancestral lineage, because what my parents and grandparents couldn't process comes to me. This is well recognized now. I'm not born neutral. I'm born into a fragmented energy field, and I take that in. It also contains collective sometimes. Any African American, and I've coached some very wonderful African American CEOs, at a certain level, deep in their DNA, they're carrying an imprint. And it affects them, but they don't realize it's affecting them until we open that box. So when someone is doing deep inner work, and I believe obviously senior leaders need to do that with a good coach, we touch those different dimensions. And it's very, very transformational to do that, because whole parts of us suddenly come online again. Whole parts of us that were frozen. So we go from simply, let's acknowledge we're feeling anxious, to my deep inner work as a leader, a true leader as healer. I have to face my inner trauma.
Is that why we see so many leaders during crises or disasters very stoic and not really feeling or showing compassion or anything like that? Is because they're having that
they're frozen
inside. They're told, don't admit to anything, don't show vulnerability or anything like that, and it always comes back to bite them when they don't.
Of course, because they're frozen inside.
Yeah.
So I just want to make one point, because it's very core for me, that real leadership development has to go on two streams. One is the mindfulness, I'm talking other than the normal cognitive capacity, which of course has to develop. But there has to be one stream, which is the meditative, the mindful, the subtle body work, the yoga, the qigong. That's one stream. The parallel stream, which is the one that's much less attended to, has to be this inner emotional work. It's much more difficult, and that's why it's not attended to. And when I teach coaching, as I do, it's a very core part of the work. And it takes a lot of inner practice as a coach to be able to hold the space for someone to go to uncomfortable emotions. But it's essential. The meditative is not enough.
It sounds like that would be logical.
Yeah.
But we do focus on leaders anyway, protect our brand, protect our company, protect our employees, greater share value, make money. And yet those are all external,
Exactly.
as you said before, and they're not going to happen organically or happen the way you want them to if you haven't taken the emotional considerations into account as well and looked at yourself. You're not just developing the organization, you have to develop yourself.
I very much agree. I would go so far as to say that most of the issues that we would say are out there are always a reflection of in here. So typically, if a senior leader comes to me for coaching, they will typically, the issues they come with are out there. And I say from the very beginning, we're going to look in you. Because once you become more integrated, the outside will be very different.
Does it make it easier to deal with?
Of course.
Or interpret or
in every way.
Manage?
In every way, Alex, in every way. First of all, because I have a much higher resilience. And secondly, because I understand the outside in a much more subtle way. To give a very simple example, and it's an exercise I often do with people I'm coaching. Someone in your team is behaving in a way that seems very dysfunctional. Let's take a moment for you to really slow down and then start to feel them. Start to feel what's happening inside them. Start to feel their inner emotional world. Don't think about it. Feel it. But that's already a revelation that we can do that, not through thinking. So let's say, as often is the case, I did this last week with a chairman of a board, actually, and he started to feel this person, and he got so much information about how insecure they feel, etc., etc., etc. It gives you a way bigger picture. You're not looking at people as machines who are behaving badly. No, bad behavior comes from a whole inner world. And if you're tuned into that inner world, you have a much broader palette, let's say, on how you relate to that person, which doesn't mean you don't sometimes say you're out. It's not about being nice, but you have a much bigger possibility with that person.
So the other piece, and I'm sure this is going to connect, is purpose.
Right. So purpose, it's a wonderful and essential topic. I would say at the core of purpose, there's a few things. One, what do I really stand for? And what do we really stand for as an organization? And even within that, I would say, we stand for connection and presence and service? Are we part of the healing that needs to come in now? Or are we still standing for the fragmentation? That's very core. What are we standing for? Who are we? And then within that, for an individual leader, what is the work that is mine to do? I find that to be a beautiful question. And that may take years to really live into. But again, it's who am I? What are my gifts? What do I really care about? What do I really want to contribute? What gives me meaning? What's going to make my life meaningful? And then on another level, which may take longer to get to, what is it that is being asked of me now? Not by the outside, but by a higher intelligence. Can I listen? What is it that's being asked of me now? Or for a group, what is it that's being asked of us now? not in terms of action necessarily, but a deeper level of who are we? What are we really doing? What's our next step? Can I listen to that? That takes purpose to another level.
I couldn't help but think sometimes, what are we being asked when there are crises and disasters and emergencies and things like that?
Yes.
A lot of people, leadership and organizations, we need to protect the brand. We need to do all these other different things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Really, it seems as though first take a look at how can we relate to people.
Well, what I mean,
and that establishes a stronger purpose.
Yes, exactly. And can we listen deeper than those issues you gave, which are important? But maybe there's something that's needed now that I haven't thought of yet, which will actually bring all of those into more of a coherence. It's detaching a bit from the immediate problems and listening more deeply, which is a beautiful thing to do, because often if we know how to do that, we get unexpected inklings, whispers sometimes. Okay. And then I need to contemplate. All senior leaders need to have a contemplative practice, whether that's meditation, walking, exercising. All senior leaders must have a contemplative practice, something that enables them to get out of the fixing mode and into a deeper reflection. As I think the famous American Wallace Stevens once said, sometimes the truth depends upon a walk around the lake. It's a wonderfully poetic metaphor. So all senior leaders have to have their way of taking a walk around the lake. They have to, or we're just going to get more and more lost.
I just had something jump into my head. Does it make a difference for an introvert versus an extrovert?
That's not a terminology I use. I find it a little bit too prescriptive. I think we're all a mixture of the two, and I'm not very comfortable with fixing people.
Right.
You're either this or this. I think there are more fundamental human traits that we need to address.
Okay. Do you have any, we've only got about 5 minutes left. Do you have any tips for leaders right now, what they may do, and even individuals? They don't even have to be leaders, because a general employee can be a leader under situations. Any things that they can start doing now to make change?
Yes. Well, first of all, make your development a high priority, not something you do when you have time. Within that, if you don't already, start a meditative or mindfulness practice, and there are many resources that will help you. Do some kind of regular body work, whether it's the more subtle versions of yoga or qigong, or cardiac or aerobic. If you do cardiac or aerobic, do it connected. Don't have headphones in. Don't be looking at something else. If you go running, run and feel your body. And then also find with a mentor or a coach, or sometimes a therapist, explore your emotional life. Explore which parts of your emotional life are locked away. All of this under the banner of make your development a high priority, because you are going to be of much higher service to other people when you do.
Just out of curiosity, are there things we should stop doing? Because you mentioned a great example, at the gym, don't have the headphones, blasting heavy metal or something. What are things we should
take
stop?
great care of how we relate to social media. and in most instances spend much less time with it. I think that's a very obvious one.
Mm.
And if you know Johan Harari's work on stolen focus, you will find a whole book about why we should do that. Yeah.
I know social media can be a
It's
wonderful thing sometimes, but it can,
addictive. Yeah.
yeah, addictive, and it can be detrimental, I think, to people's well-being and their thinking
Yeah.
process and their self, how you
On a
think about
very,
yourself.
yes, on a very simple level, it make it really simple. Multiple times a day, give yourself a moment of inner pause, just with one or two deliberate breaths. I'm here. Install that as regular pauses during the day, which could take 30 seconds, no more. Before a Zoom meeting, take a moment. I'm here. I'm ready. Make that regular.
I know for me, one of the things that I use is when I'm walking the dog, because I'm paying attention to what he needs and what he's doing. And I find myself paying more attention to what's around me, what's happening. And I've become a lot calmer. I'm not thinking about, I got to go update the spreadsheet. I got to make this email. I've got to do all these other things. It's just us, walking down a trail, listening, you hear birds, or, you see squirrels and things like that. It's paying closer attention to just me and what's around me.
Wonderful. Well, that's an essence of mindfulness, and I support everyone to find their version of that. Beautifully put, Alex.
Nicholas, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you very much for joining me today. I found this really inspirational, and I hope a lot of people pay attention, because a lot of the things you brought forward are topics that are coming up in the business continuity, crisis, resilience industries. And I don't think a lot of people know what they can do to manage those kind of situations.
Right.
And it really, the things that you brought forward, I hope gives them insight that, stop looking at the external for answers. Look in a mirror.
Right.
Look at yourself and start thinking. So thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations again on the book Leader is Healer. I recommend it to everybody. There's a lot of good insights in here, and of course, Nicholas brought up a lot of great things. Any closing thought you'd like to share before
I really enjoyed our conversation. As with any good conversation, I learned as we went along, and I think that's a good litmus test for a real conversation, that it's fresh. And thank you, because our conversation for me was fresh.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know I did. Thank you so much again, Nicholas.
Thank you.
And everybody watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.